my concerns. If Commander Bowen had had the decency, like he said on the phone call, no matter what his PA says, I know what we're right. I quoted to you about an inspector who took me and the gentleman here, ex-councillor Warren Bates, out to the Civic, a silent protest. The police were notified, and we were told to come up here under false representation to get us out of that council, your palsy-walsy council, and it isn't you that Bobby's on the beat, it's the higher up. Under the new position of Commander Bowen, you say you want things right for your family. I've quoted you things that have gone on in other people's families, and are you happy with it? And regarding the continuation of my questions that I said, I'll just have moved. There's a couple of nasties here and I don't want to get stung.
Okay. There's a can of beer.
I don't want to get stung because I feel I'm being stung with the council and its council tax, not giving fit for purpose. Right, to Heather. Why do you and the council, Commander Bowen, make statements together? Because of your partnership. Like I said in last November's protest and public event, please make yourselves wary, Oldham Police, on who you partner yourself up with. I've said that when councillors raise alarm, you send 3 police cars, 5 officers down. For me, over 60. Ex-councillor Warren Bates, 82 then. 82 then. You know, what thread were we in? And yet, nothing happened. And when I came up to that police station and tried to follow it up, why were we pulled out of a legitimate, peaceful protest, not one word being said, that a sergeant wanted to speak to us? And yet, that sergeant wasn't there. It was a ploy. It was a partnership between yourself, Oldham Police or GMP, and this council to shut people up, to try and hold councillors to account. Do I feel safe regarding all this? No, I do not. Do I trust, which in your statement, Commander Bowen, in November, in the Oldham Cron, you said you wanted to give trust back. You've not. And in the letter I wrote to you, when you refused and you would not allow me to have a meeting with you, I've had to come down here and publicly open it up, where you could have just called me in, because I'll read your statement, Commander Bowen. Nice picture, Commander Bowen. Pity they don't do pictures of ordinary members of the public. It says that you will be held accounted by the Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabulary, Fire and Rescue Services. Local politicians, I don't give a monkeys about the local politicians, because they get elected and they don't give a damn for us. They don't even reply as they should, because the Conservative government in 2011 gave them untouchable status by the Localism Act, where they have to implement their own grievance procedures, how they conduct themselves, without any interference from central government. What you've done is, you've handed all the keys to all the safes to the bank robbers. That's what you've done. They're not honest people. And when councillors scream for help, you instantly come down in droves. But when we ask for your help, you don't even turn up. But regarding this statement, I'll have to repeat it. We will be held to account by Her Majesty's Inspectorate and Constabulary, Fire and Rescue. Local politicians, Commander Bowen, are you ready for this? And more above all the others, most importantly, the public. The public. That's us.
That's all.
And yet, you won't come out. And regarding the CSE, how far has it escalated? How far have all our police forces done nothing? Because we've had Oldham, Rochdale, Rotherham, Sheffield, Cumbria, Telford, and in last Saturday's Yorkshire Post. And it should be a breath of fresh air, Commander Boyd, because it's the Yorkshire Post. You was with West Yorkshire Police, so this is a breath of fresh air. It is Yorkshire Post, and in it says that the forces' child protection flaws were partly down to a shortage of trained officers. And you'd like to give your apology. This is North Yorkshire, where children were abused, and you'd like to give your apologies to all those that had been sexually molested, raped,
And survived. And survived.
and they've survived the trauma.
They've survived.
In Oldham, we classed by national statistic as a deprived town. Deprived. There has always been very poor families when I were growing up. Times were hard. Wages were poor. The main tradesmen at Platts Engineering down here were only on £27 a week. Now I know I'm not going back, as old people do, in relation to how things cost. But what I am saying is that we're in a time now where there is an escalation of children who are under poverty, where they've got parents done time in prison, drug abuse. They are vulnerable children, vulnerable, and through no fault of their own, they need protecting. The law, the self-esteem's law, they are vulnerable. And when we have these people who are there to protect them, and they've come up from a very bad background, I, Commander Boyd, and the gentleman outside, our age, and hopefully your family, have been brought up where we haven't had to encounter in family life the harsh difficulties regarding these vulnerable children. We shouldn't have failed them. And the excuses and sorries isn't good enough. We the people of Oldham want heads to roll. We want people prosecuted.
Convicted.
Convicted and prosecuted. No more sorries. Oh, we're sorry. You know, we're sorry. Yeah, don't be sorry. Have me hanky, wipe your eyes. Wipe your eyes. Saying sorry's not good enough.
That's all they said is sorry. So in the past 15 years, any child sexual exploitation scandal, they just said sorry, we'll have to learn better.
To
And
the
they said
survivors.
that for 30 years.
To the
John,
survivors. To
I'm
the
just-
kids.
John, I've just read it here. The Localism Act was brought in 2011. And these criminalities of CSE seem to be dated from 2011, 2013. Do we know? It's still going on now. It hasn't stopped. That Localism Act gave every damn council in England the ability to be untouchable, and only an Act of Parliament can stop this. So people of Oldham who have never voted, please just write a letter to the Home Secretary and demand that Oldham and GMP and this council is investigated. We'll never get anywhere. And it's 68-year-old, nearly 69, fighting, protesting, always with the police backing. All the paperwork, never done nothing without notifying the police. I am not the wrong one. But what I am is sick to death of people off the street, normal jobs, who want to stand as a damn councillor, and when they get elected stick two fingers up to us, and they know they're untouchable, and they know they can call on the police because because you're the partners. You're the council's partners. But you are responsible. In this press covering, Commander Bowen, and most especially, or most importantly, the public. But you refuse to meet it. You refuse to meet it. Oh, and one other thing, Councillor Warren Bates did raise it, and I wish to speak out. The paper on the floor is because I had to make a quick getaway from them nasties.
What, the ones in there?
John, they could be in there. They could be in there, John. They have a uniform on. Serious one now. And he's quite right, ex-councillor Warren Bates. Ewan MacDonald, the whistleblower, 20 odd years, 30 odd years councillor. I think it was 30 odd years, JP on the bench raised the alarm. A whistleblower. And they shut him up. A young woman who I know was in court with me because I withheld my council tax twice. They sent me to Tameside Magistrates Court where I said to the courtroom solicitor, I want defence. So she ripped into me, said how wrong it was to withhold any proportion of your council tax. It goes to this, it goes to that, it goes to police, it goes to Andy Burnham, the mayor. Well, I refused. And when she had finished with me, my opening words were, wrong. You as a courtroom solicitor, tell me about wrong. We've had 3 councillors in Crown Court, with 2 undergoing police investigation. That were at that time. With 1 on the sex offenders register. I think we've got 3 now. You were telling me what's right or wrong. It depends how strong you are. And what carries me on is that every day I walk through the cemetery with the little dog and I look at all the war graves, First and Second World War, and I think of the establishment in the First World War that shot our lads because they wouldn't fight and they deserted. They shot them. They were frightened to death. And in the First World War, when they were fighting with bayonets, and fighting, and there was camaraderie on that Christmas Eve in the trenches, where an armistice were made because ordinary people like us here were forced to fight by the establishments, forced to fight, and at the end of that armistice, they had to kill one another. Now them lads and lasses and that young woman there, and the 2 young women, Fiona Bruce, I had to write it down, it's my memory. Nicola Hughes and Fiona Bruce, Bones, who were gunned down. This young lady was dragged, killed, murdered.
Alison Armitage.
Is that what carries me through? And to all the police officers, I know there are good police officers in here. I know there are. But what it is you're controlled by people higher, such as Commander Bowen, up above Commander Bowen, Chief Constable, who are pulling strings. So I'm pleading with the hard-working police officers, you know anything, whether you think there is a more than polite partnership between yourself and this council, whether you know you're being told to look the other way and to look for white perpetrators instead of Asian ones for child grooming, don't report it to anybody other than you write to the Home Secretary anonymously, because you can't even trust the law regarding the safety of whistleblowers. Now the young woman, lost her job in reporting shouting safety to the under fives. Under fives. She was in court with me, and we blasted when they tried to force this unity partnership, it were, and they tried their best to force you to pay in. Well, we both refused, and we went in and they could give them our piece in the courtrooms. Can't carry on. Now, the solicitor said, in knowing that you were prepared to pay when they were putting an order on you, why have you gone through all this? I said, I'll tell you why. To make you the JPs, your courtroom solicitor. There are things that people are getting away with within that council, and they need to be held to account. That's the reason I did it. Twice, it might have been 3 times. But I did it more than once. And it was £20. I withheld £20 because I didn't want to pay in any councillors sleazy expenses when they laugh at you, when we're sectioned off by a blinking monkey screen, so they can't hear us when we raise our objections, when you're only given a few minutes to hold them to account. But how dare we have to pay into our policing when our police are letting us down? You could have stopped it, Commander Boyd. You could have had the decency. I asked for the decency in November last year. I said, you've got my name, you've got my address, you've got my phone number, because this protest is the second one I've done. Did the press ever print it? No, they did not. But I've never been called in. I don't want to be frightened of going in no-go areas. I don't want to smell the cannabis smell when you're driving behind people. Are they driving? Is somebody going to be killed because they're under the influence of drugs? I don't want to walk the pavements, Commander Bowen, when scooters are right at the back. And I nearly got knocked down after coming out of 2 surgery operations with hernias. Cut open, stitched up, frightened to death. Nerves gone. Do your job, Commander Bowen, and your officers, please.
Can I just say, last year at the Mayor's Question Time, I did say to Bowen and the Deputy Chief Constable of Manchester that the police are a national disgrace. And since then, the Met Police have gone on special measures. Great Manchester Police are still on special measures. There's investigations in Rotherham, Telford and in Yorkshire into police forces. So, you know, I'm just making people aware. This is all true stuff, you know what I mean? So, I want to have faith in the police, but how can we have faith in the police when they're a national disgrace?
John, I'm sorry to have to tell you this, but I did protest regarding toxic chemicals that we were forced to use. I'm digressing a bit, but the end statement is very alarming for you and very alarming for everybody else. Not only was it on the Jeremy Vine programme when I spoke up last November, and there were police officers and spokespeople at the Met in London that whistle blew, and then some officers frightened of whistleblowing because the corruption within London Met was so high, and this was on Jeremy Vine's radio programme, that if they felt that they whistle blew and they got found out who had whistleblown, that the other officers would not come to their aid when they pressed the panic button. I was told by London police when I was down in London on a protest, and I was frightened, I didn't know where to stand, because I was threatened with prosecution by Charing Cross police, and 2 police officers came by and I beckoned them over, and they said, why are you down here? And I were on my own, self-employed in agriculture, working with highly dangerous toxic chemicals, some with no antidote, forced on us, in law, forced on us, and he says, I'm sorry to have to tell you, and he put his hand on my shoulder, and he said, the corruption believe I was told that Elaine Gary, our elected mayor, was seen to go down to Annie Kenny's statue yesterday. She had some young children, she wasn't approached in any way. And I'm surmising, and it's my own views, that she were probably telling the children about Annie Kenny and the suffragettes. Did she tell them about St. Peter's Field massacre, where the Dragoon Guards sabred, cutlass, members of the poor public protested of a right to survive, to have food on the table, and they were cutlass dead. The establishment sent the Dragoon Guards in, and they killed them. Now, some of the Dragoon Guards put the sabres down. Shouldn't have done it. We're not fighting the establishment, because when you found out all you wrongdoers within your positions, police, vicars, solicitors, reverends, barristers, you know, you've proven, and MPs, you've proven that you're not the pillar of the community. We are. Because it is us that stand for right. But I, this evening or this week, will be writing to Priti Patel with the letters from two Prime Ministers, David Cameron, Boris Johnson, that I did not get the courtesy of a reply. Didn't get the courtesy of a reply. And you lot want our votes. And I know the police, like I said, I remarked about it last November again, that the police even march round Whitehall for their own jobs, their own safety, and their own salaries. You know how it is. But there are people in high positions, higher than Chris Boyd, who are saying, oh, you can't let them win, you can't let them win. Shut them up, shut them up. I'm not here for that. I'm here because I'm sickened to death of walking and looking at Armistice Day, when highly acclaimed police officers, when royalty, when we've got every supposed to be members of the public and civil servants dog their best big and tucker and put a poppy in the lapel, them lads and police officers and army personnel dead, disfigured, disabled, arms, legs blown off. It's all because of politics and politicians. And we should be in peace, not bickering among ourselves. And when you get elected, you should work for us. And I wonder if within 3 months they withdrew their salaries from all these MPs, from all these local politicians, how many are left remaining with their asses on the seats if you weren't getting a penny?
Isn't there not
None of
14 people in the council who are on over £100,000 a year?
There
Including
are.
MPs. There's 14 people within Oldham Council.
I think, is Harry Catherall, is his salary,
It's about over 200,000.
well, I would have said about 145.
Yeah,
and
which
then-
is more
and
than the
then
Prime
there's
Minister.
And then there's expenses,
Yeah.
you know, but it even raised it on national routes, and I even believe that there are some Prime Ministers I've remarked about chief execs in local authorities being on more than them.
Yeah, they are.
We can't carry on.
But sorry, go on, carry
No,
on.
John, carry on.
So I mean, Oldham's a poor town, so they don't have any money. So the cemetery you're on about, they didn't do any work on it, did it? And is it flooding that cemetery's got an issue with?
John, they've rectified that, and they paid part of my family, whose wife had died, suffered out with 3 years of cancer, went in a watery grave. They were told 12 months before, and Councillor Hazel Gloucester was aware of it. The press that's supposed to be non-biased, and in my opinion are in the pockets of the council, put an article in and I've asked Harry Catherall for an apology, and I've asked for an official complaint regarding our borough solicitor,
All benches.
because I deem what he's not doing is within the laws of being open, honest and transparent. He's covering up, and we can't do nothing, Mr. Policeman, especially Commander Boyne, if you use them as partners. You think you're partners. But regarding the cemetery, John, in that statement, and I've asked who wrote that statement regarding the flooding, because they put it down, the flooding at Crompton Cemetery was solely down to Storm Christoph and melting snow.
No, but there's flooding.
No, John.
Is that what they said?
That's what they said. That's what they put out in the public, because they didn't want them to be deemed as the... Oh, I haven't got the word
You
for
were
it.
responsible
But
for
what
the
I'm trying to
accident.
say is that Shaw suffers from flooding things, doesn't it? In Shaw's all areas near the where the tram station is. There's an area next door where the building houses, and a woman says it always floods that area.
John, sometimes it's the gullies, they don't have the staff to get round. I know fine well it takes them a year to get round in Uppermill. It takes them a year to get round. They've cut down staff. They won't pay. Where's all our money going? We're not getting value for money.
There's
Not
no
going
money
down,
over
the
there.
council-
Not getting value for money at all. But regarding this drainage, it was an historical culvert that had collapsed. And Harry Catherall, our chief exec,